Welcome to Uncaged, the show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Jeremy Blackburn. Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I am well. And Jeremy, we're going to be talking about all of the things that he's working on at ChainIT. He is the president of Black Ink Tech, and we're going to be talking about their ChainIT solution, verifiably linking physical world products, objects, services, and events to the digital worlds of Web 2.0 and 3.0, metaverse and tokens through metadata. We're going to be talking about some of the key topics that are really bubbling up and some of the changes that we're seeing in the broader Web3 blockchain environment, and really some of the things that ChainIT's working on to resolve some of those challenges and move things forward. Jeremy, before we get going, though, it'd be great to hear the latest on ChainIT. Tell us a little bit about the platform.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. A lot of developments since we last talked. We've got a release date very shortly, very soon. Obviously, the developers and our CTO don't like us to disclose dates because they always like to finish their testing before we release anything. But I would say for sure in the next 45 days, we'll be pushing out our next release into production. And we're very excited about that. You know, our first release was last year, and we've been going through just a lot of development and changes as far as functionality and features. We've got some really exciting products and features that we're going to be announcing on the ChainIT platform in the next couple of weeks, in fact. So I'd love to come back after that happens and talk more about them. But, some really, I think, globally applicable things related to supply chain, food, consumables, identity, contracts, just really solving some real world problems, through the utilization of blockchain and immutable technology.
Excellent. And we're seeing this landscape, I'd say, that ChainIT plays in. I'm going to say that it's maturing. We're moving from the crawl stage to the walk stage, maybe in some respects. And so some of the topics that have been around from the beginning continue to change. And it's interesting to see how they'll go and evolve even further. But I know that, certainly one of the big drivers initially was the NFT marketplace. Anybody who went to Art Basel in Miami a couple of years ago, I don't think there was a booth that didn't have an NFT of some sort on the market at that time. But really kind of raises some questions on how digital scarcity is developing and really that NFT market in general. What are you seeing out there, Jeremy?
That's a great question. And I would wholeheartedly agree with you that the market itself continues to evolve and mature to a certain degree. The NFT marketplace, really was dominated by, OpenSea and Candy up to even the end of last year. And there was a new marketplace, Blur, that came along. And there's some pretty strong opinions upon if that's good or bad for the overall NFT market. NFT, as we both know, stands for non-fungible token. That just means something is digitally unique. And a lot of times it's been almost synonymous with digital art. And there's some great and amazing digital artists. I live in Charleston, as we talked about last time, and Beeple. He actually just had his gallery opening on Saturday here, so he actually has a physical office gallery that's here in Charleston, and he is actually producing physical representations of his digital art, which is actually almost full circle if you think about it. We started off with physical art that went to a digital art, but now digital is coming back to physical. And I think there'll be a lot of blending of those worlds as far as the artists go. But as far as the NFT marketplace and what is occurring there, it's actually one of the things that we're working on with ChainIT is that, initially, and we still are integrated with, OpenSea and Candy, but the challenge has become that with Blur having captured, over a majority of the market in a short period of time, we've actually taken the initiative to develop our own marketplace so that we have a very solid platform where our, validated data tokens can be utilized. They're not just utilized to buy and sell, art. They're associated or connected to basically any physical good or service that exists. And one of the reasons that we've done that is that with a platform like Blur, I believe that with the digital art world, that one of the biggest selling points on a digital artist NFT was the creator royalties. In other words, if I created a digital art work, that I would get a royalty every time that digital art was bought and sold.
Right.
And while the new platform allows people to donate, it actually strips that functionality out of the NFT. And one of the reasons they're doing that is that they're seeking what they call professional NFT traders. It's an interesting term if you think about it. If digital art is in fact art, I don't remember a Monet getting sold 5 times a year, let alone 5 times a day or 5 times an hour. And what you see with a lot of the NFT trades happening now is I don't think there's any value being given to the actual art that the NFT represents. In fact, I think one of your leading questions was, NFT and digital scarcity. There is one Mona Lisa, as we all know, and that one Mona Lisa is invaluable. And literally, I don't know that anybody could ever buy it. It is a national treasure and is treated as such. And it is extremely scarce. In fact, maybe one of the rarest things, on the planet. However, we could all buy a print of that Mona Lisa. And the challenge with NFT and digital art is actually proving the provenance or the originality of the digital art, because as we know, a digital record is easy to, right click, copy, paste, and you've got two, right? One of the things we did with ChainIT is in our art product with ArtLock, we actually create immutable or permanent ledger lists of the digital art so that that what you're buying is in fact not an original, but the original. And then you can actually see and validate it in your wallet or the seller's wallet to know that you are buying the original. And so what I see what's happening with high volume NFT trading platforms, I just that concept is completely foreign to me in the regard that we're literally stripping out one of the biggest benefits of digital art in the NFTs, which is the creator royalties, which we actually try to do that with physical art in connecting it to a token that then the physical artist can get paid royalties every time their work is bought and sold, and the token acts as the proof of provenance for that. And so the NFT marketplace is quickly changing. And when I see, again, high volume currency, not currency, but high volume NFT trading, it literally makes me think of high volume currency trading. I mean, you're trying to spot trends as opposed to the value of the underlying art, which again, there's amazing digital art. I mean, the works of Beeple and others are literally, they're inspiring. And to see this being reduced into mass or gross or bulk trades, stripping out the creator or the royalty fees, it's a little disheartening.
It also seems like maybe just a default to maybe a solution that might work in some cases, but not really for the art market. And I think the beauty of what you guys have at ChainIT is you're able to customize this to build a solution that's strong for each market. So the art market in and of itself is one that is clearly in need of something like this that can help manage that scarcity question. And certainly, I'm right now I'm in Germany, and I was at a art event here over the weekend, and I think that there's a desire to figure out this market again. But it did go a little bit quiet. And so hopefully I'm excited to see what you guys are developing here, because I think it can drive new energy into the space. But I mean, I know another area, Jeremy, that you guys are focused on heavily is something that really impacts almost every industry, certainly the key ones, which is our identity, who we are, our digital identity. And I think anybody who's gone through the process of filling out forms a million times over online knows the pain of everyone trying to capture their customers' information and identity. But I mean, how are you seeing digital identity evolving here as we step into the Web3 space more permanently?
currently with Web 2, and I think you are correct with what's known as know your customer or KYC or anti-money laundering or AML requirements in most countries. You have this requirement to actually verify that your client is who they say they are. And what that's led to is the current Web 2 platform, the internet as we know it right now, where each individual bank creates a profile of their customer. And so a lot of times that is a digital or biometric identity that they create or capture. I think a lot of us have a banking app, and without disclosing bank names, we all know who the top 5 banks in the US are. But if I was to log into one banking app with my face template or my biometric identity, I couldn't take that same face template and log into one of the other banks. In other words, each one of these institutions stores their customer client biometrics in a silo, if you will. And that is the current internet that we have. All the corporations and even governments, they have the data, they have the biometrics, and either they won't or don't share between companies. And there's a lot of good reasons to not do that. If I'm Bank A or I'm Government A, I don't necessarily want to give access to my citizens or my clients' information and data to any other country or corporation, especially a competitor. And so that's how Web 2 has been developed. But Web 3 is really about consumer empowerment or customer ownership. And what that means is that as a consumer or a customer or a user, I own my own data and I own my own digital identity. And so that is definitely what I can see evolving. And I think it's evolving even quicker than most anticipated. And a lot of that is related to a lot of the AI that is being developed and the ability for your digital identity to verify that you're human. And that's going to be even more of a requirement, in the near future and especially long term. And that's going to be done through your digital identity. And so we are definitely focused on, digital identity and where that is evolving. And in fact, that's one of our biggest initiatives right now.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that, because I'm fascinated by digital ID. It's something that I'd say over the last decade, I've seen many companies play around with what at times seemed like breakthroughs in the space, and then kind of it settled and then moved forward a little bit. I love what you're saying, this idea that an individual could actually own their information, could essentially parse it out. I know there was conversations, even big players like Google and others trying to do that at various points. But tell me how this manifests itself in kind of the current iteration.
Well, you have to have a starting point with identity. And I can tell you how we're doing it. And I think that it is literally I think it's a global solution. We're very proud of it. And we're quickly building out the platform so that it is scalable on a global network. So, what we do is we start with the existing legacy systems of the government that the governments currently own and operate. So we're not trying to sell new software or hardware to the governments. We are literally taking the legacy records, which is a trusted third party. Governments are known as a trusted third party, and we connect the individual to their government record. And so, to give an example, you would take your driver's license here in the United States, and through either your cell phone, which is, of course, a ubiquitous technology that is literally global. There's cell phones everywhere now. And I could literally take my cell phone, hold up my driver's license to it, and the cell phone would read and register the driver's license. And then through our integration partners at Encode, it would then research and pull that data record from the DMV. And it would verify that, number one, that ID is valid, and that it is, of effect, that it's an active ID. It would then, through, OCR or, character recognition, verify that the name on the driver's license is actually the name in the DMV record. And then there's a couple of, every state's not the same and every country's not the same. And so there's multiple ways to do the following, but either through the image comparison on the license to the person, or the actual, golden record or golden image of the DMV or the government agency, the algorithms would do a facial template comparison to confirm with a certain degree of authenticity that the person that is authenticating themselves is the person in the government ID. So
Right.
what we claim is that our digital identity is as secure or to the same authenticity that the government ID is. And then what happens from there is your digital identity on the ChainIT ID platform is referenced either through an alphanumeric code or a QR code that is embedded in the record at the time of creation. And this is what we were talking about earlier. This is an NFT. We call them validated data tokens because we collect additional attribute metadata related to where, when, who, and what, so that there's attributes associated with that NFT or that data record that allow us to validate or verify it, at a future point. And the importance there is that the blockchain is immutable, which is a very fancy way of saying it's permanent. It's very difficult to alter a blockchain record. And so if I have a permanent data record now that is connected or validated my biometrics to my government ID, and I have a QR code or again, an alphanumeric, reference number, I can at any point through that QR code or reference number, validate myself to an additional party, whether that's an additional government, an additional company, an additional individual. I can validate myself through my own biometrics. And how that would work is, let's say that, I'm a US citizen and I'm in, Japan. I'm in Japan and I, get pulled over by the police or I'm going through immigration. I've got some issue where I need to verify or validate myself to that government. And so we all have passports and we all know those can be faked. And we all know that certain governments will share passport data and ID data, and certain governments won't. And so in this case, they don't need to share because what can happen is it's my choosing. And I think that's that consumer ownership that we talked about. So I can choose to validate myself or I can choose not to validate myself. But if
Jeremy, it's really interesting. I love this idea because I'm a big believer in individual ownership of your information and utilizing it as you choose, really kind of putting the onus back on us as end users. But who's the buyer of this? How do you buy it and who pays for it?
Yeah. Well, so really quickly, let me just wrap that up because I think it'll explain exactly what you're headed towards, which is this. So if I choose to verify myself, I can either display the QR code or give the alphanumeric code to somebody that wants to authenticate me. Okay. And then with their cell phone, they can scan the QR code. And it will pull up our ChainIT platform, and it will pull up a face template just like you log in with your bank now. And so because I gave them that original record, they now can through their cell phone capture my biometric face template and on a one-to-one basis compare and confirm that the person that they're scanning is the person in that record. And so they can verify and validate my government ID through my biometrics, but it's my choosing to do so. If they just came up and used our app to scan my face, it's not going to find me. It's not going to pull me up. I have to authorize through my QR code or my alphanumeric number and my own biometrics access to my ID. Now, who would be a user? When you look at Web 3.0, the consumers are the users, right? We are the ones that have the data. We are the ones that have our digital identity. And that is actually the biggest target market that we'll be going after is individual consumers that want to self-validate or verify themselves with a global identity. And that identity could be used for any corporate or government authenticity or authentication requirement. So instead of my bank capturing my biometric identity or my biometrics, I would go into the bank and I would validate myself through that Web 3.0 enabled digital identity so that the bank knows I am who I say I am. And they don't have to store my biometrics, which is a big risk for corporations. So in this model, if I wanted to authenticate or validate myself, the company doesn't need to store my biometrics. I authorize myself. And I think that is the biggest benefit is that I get to choose when my biometrics are used and when my identity is used, not the other way around. One of the things that a lot of consumers or people are concerned about is that if there is, a biometric database, what will the government do with it? What will the company do with it? Can they literally set up, like a CCTV scan, camera system where they can literally be scanning everybody that walks by and identify them? We know that there's a very large country that does that today. And it's a big concern for the citizens there. And it's a big concern for the rest of the world because they don't want that system. And this would completely alleviate the possibility of that, because the biometrics are stored with the individual, not with the government and not with the companies.
Yeah, Jeremy, I'm really excited about where you and the team at ChainIT are going. I think that we're going to see a lot of great stuff coming out of your team over the next couple of months, years, and this whole space, I think, is evolving so quickly. So I'm so happy to check in with you on these topics. I mean, I think if we were talking about NFTs literally even like 3-6 months ago, it would have been a completely different story. So thank you so much for being on Cage today. We've been speaking with Jeremy Blackburn. He is the president of Black Ink's tech platform, ChainIT. ChainIT verifiably links physical world products, objects, services, and events to the digital worlds of Web 2.0, 3.0. We've been talking about really what ChainIT is thinking about in terms of two big topics. One is digital scarcity, and that really, I guess, in the one of the ways that people really can get their head around it, it impacts things like NFTs, and how we can actually build a marketplace that makes sense in the art world. But also maybe even more so is the topic of global digital identity. The question about identity is there's the gatekeepers and then there's the people that are trying to get in, and it's really who controls that information and how you build it. And it's really interesting to see how ChainIT is approaching those challenges. Jeremy, again, thank you so much for being on Cage. We look forward to having you back.
I appreciate it, Ben. I look forward to talking again soon.
All right, cheers.
Thank you.